Joining us now is Democratic strategist Richard Goodstein and former advisor to Republican House Speaker John Boehner, Maura Gillespie. It's good to see you guys. So, Richard, I want to talk more about this split screen that we're seeing right now. Trump set to speak at the RNC tonight after surviving an assassination attempt, after getting multiple legal victories recently, to see that party coalescing around him. Well, you have President Biden now sidelined by COVID as he's facing more pressure from his own party to step aside. What do you make of it?
Well, I would take issue a little bit on this whole the Republicans are united. We're not seeing George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, Dick Cheney, Mike Pence, Paul Ryan, and the list goes on. People who work very closely with Donald Trump in the White House, all of whom call him unfit. Of course, we're not seeing them, but they still represent people. They're not isolationists. They're not protectionists. They're not for giving pardons to cop beaters. I think this COVID diagnosis was a blessing in disguise because as opposed to going from one event to another, one interview to another, the president can kind of relax, focus, talk with people about what's going on. Certainly all the indications from what's being reported is that he is more open to this and he's talking more about should I stick it out and more can Kamala pull it off. And I do think there's no alternative but to her being the nominee if he does step aside. But this was always going to be a process. The public calls made him bristle. That's why these meetings were kind of more in private. Nancy Pelosi goes on Morning Joe and sort of like opens the floodgates a little bit for these leading Democrats to convey to him directly what's at stake. Remarkably, the polls have not cratered after the debate and after the assassination attempt.
And that's one thing he keeps pointing to.
He does, but the fact that the Democrats are doing so much better at the Senate level and all these swing states says the problem is not Democrats and their policies and what they represent. It's Biden's age.
So, Maura, literally just a few hours before we had heard Biden in an interview with BET say that if he were to, reconsider stepping aside, it would be because of something like a medical condition. Then we find out, is diagnosed with COVID. However, it's a little different than what he's been saying previously. Let's give everybody a reminder.
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
It depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win.
We will 1,000%, in your words, see you on the ballot this November?
Unless I get hit by a train, yeah.
Some more campaign officials say the president will be back on the trail as soon as he is COVID-free. But what could a prolonged absence from the campaign trail mean for the president in this moment?
He's missing out on opportunities to reach voters that need to be convinced. And I, quite frankly, don't see how they will be. I don't think that what Biden has been doing is good for the country because there's been conversations about his age since he went into office in 4 years ago. We knew his age then, so it's not like as if he went Benjamin Button style and just started, getting younger. That's just not reality. And I think that this conversation from Democrats should have happened far sooner. Dean Phillips tried bringing it up, and he was largely shunned by his fellow Democrats for even having brought the conversation of passing the torch to the next generation. So I think it's a little too late to be having this conversation. And Trump campaign will be sure to make sure Biden's on the ticket.
I want to detail some of this new reporting. Again, it seems that the president has lost even the most powerful members and allies of his up on the Hill. NBC News is reporting that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer presented President Biden with polling data in a blunt one-on-one meeting Saturday, according to two sources. But the sources would not say if Schumer directly called on Biden to consider dropping out. And then, according to CNN, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi privately told President Biden in a recent conversation that polling shows that the president cannot defeat Donald Trump and that Biden could destroy Democrats' chances of winning the House in November. Look, these conversations, as far as we know, happened days ago. The fact that the information is just coming out now, does that signal their way of trying to pressure President Biden, do you think?
I think it does. And I think they were hoping that there would be a more immediate kind of pullback by Biden. But let's not kind of overlook the fact that by any kind of reckoning, they'd want to have the Republican convention kind of over before anything was announced. And not only does Biden have to decide whether to pull out, and I think most leading Democrats, of course, at this point hope he does, but when, and what's his message when he does that? He's not going to say, oh, I was browbeaten into pulling out. He's got to make it look positive, and assuming he's going to pass the baton to Kamala, put that in a very positive light. And I think he can do that, but that takes time. That just doesn't happen, the minute you want it to.
Well, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of time for this decision to be made and to be firmed up. Maura, I'm curious what you're hearing from Republicans who maybe don't want to vote for Donald Trump. Maybe they were leaning toward Biden. How are they seeing things?
It's beyond frustrating, I think, for people who, again, we were given these choices that a majority of the American people did not want to have again. And so when you're looking at the polls, it's not about, it's my choice to vote between two terrible choices. That's not our option here. The reality is the candidates need to convince us to give our votes to them. And if they don't, we can write in. And I know people have objections to that, but that's part of the freedoms of this country is my freedom to write in who I choose to vote for president, because the parties failed to give me choices that were actually adequate to have the biggest job in the entire world, the leader of the free world.
Would the people who are leaning toward Biden vote for Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket?
I highly doubt it, because she has not shown us anything to say, oh, she could do this job. Her one task she had was the border, and she didn't do it. She did nothing to help the border crisis, and people are going to pull that out. Trump world, again, is going to hit on that so hard, and people who have felt lost in the Republican Party will continue to feel lost, and I think voter turnout is going to suffer because of it.
Conversation to be continued. Got to leave it there for now. Thank you both so much.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.